This is going to play out over the Pacific Ocean with countries that I have lived in before. And all I can tell you tonight, without any hint of hyperbole, folks, if we don't get our act together at home, we will see the end of the American century by 2050, and we are not going to let that happen, are we? Ladies and gentlemen, we've also been able to get our message out to the people of this great state about a second deficit that we have. It's not an economic deficit, but it is just as corrosive as the economic deficit. It's called a trust deficit. Because the people of the greatest nation that ever was, the United States of America, no longer trust their institutions of power and no longer trust their elected officials. And I say, how did we get to this spot? We are too good as people to be in this hole. We are the most blue sky, problem-solving, can-do, optimistic people on earth, and we're going to get out there and we're going to address the trust deficit. And it's going to start with Congress, because everybody knows Congress needs term limits. And everybody knows we've got to close that revolving door that allows members of Congress to file right on out to become lobbyists, trading in on their insider information and relationships. And we wonder why there is cynicism, as seen by the American people, toward Congress. No trust. And I say, there is no trust in our wars abroad, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to fix that part. Because I'm going to stand up in front of the American people, and I'm going to say, we have something to show for our 10 years in the war on terror. Something to show for the American people that's mighty important. We have run the Taliban from power. We have upended and dismantled al-Qaeda. They're now in sanctuaries in Waziristan and beyond. Osama bin Laden is no longer around. We've had free elections. We have strengthened civil society and helped the military and help the police. We have done what this nation can do. It is time to bring the troops home from Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen. We need trust infused back into this nation. We need a president who's going to be able to stand up and say it's time we come together as Americans first and foremost. This nation, the greatest nation on earth, has every attribute a nation would ever want for success. You know that? That's why we're going to succeed as we go forward. All we need is a little bit of leadership and a plan. But I saw this nation from 10,000 miles away. You hear me? 10,000 miles away. When you see this nation from abroad, you tend to see it in bold colors. You know what I saw from 10,000 miles away living over in China? I saw a nation with the greatest people on earth. A nation that is down for the moment, down temporarily. But a nation that's about to rise up again, because we have every attribute a nation would ever want to succeed. We have stability. We have rule of law. We have the longest surviving constitution in the world. We even have private property rights right here in New Hampshire. We have the greatest colleges and universities on earth, and people flock here from every corner to attend them. We have the most creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial people anywhere, and they're sitting on their hands because there is no confidence about the direction or the leadership of this nation. And I say, that's an engine of growth that we are going to refire. And I say, we have the greatest and most courageous armed forces this nation has ever seen. And I'll be darned if we're going to allow the men and women to come from the theaters of combat, the front lines, to the unemployment lines. That's not going to happen. Those men and women who have worn the uniform of the United States of America in the theater of combat are going to come home to dignity and respect and to admiration. And they're going to come home to jobs and opportunity as well. And they're going to do the same thing for this nation that the greatest generation did so many decades ago. They rebuilt this nation. They pulled this nation up by the bootstraps, and there's another greatest generation coming up. You know the people I'm talking about, they're in your families, they're in our neighborhoods, we love them all, and they're going to do what earlier generations did. They're going to help us rebuild this nation. They're going to help us make it the very best it possibly can be. Ladies and gentlemen, I love this state. This state we have worked hard and diligently. We have pounded the pavement. We have shaken hands. We have had conversations. We have won people over person by person. This is the old way to get politics done in New Hampshire. And my confidence in the system is reborn because of the people in New Hampshire. Because they just turn out at these town hall meetings. Nobody forces them. Nobody tells them they have to do it. It's because they believe in a better tomorrow for the United States of America.
They believe in John Huntsman.
And they thank you. Thank you very much. And they turn out to the town hall meetings, and they turn out to the House parties, and they hear from the candidates, and then they assimilate and they digest it all, and then they render a judgment. And here we sit tonight, ladies and gentlemen, with a ticket to ride and to move on. Here we go to South Carolina. Thank you all so very much. Thank you. Thank you all so very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Former Utah Governor John Huntsman placing third tonight in the New Hampshire Republican primary. This speech that you just saw serving effectively as his primetime introduction to the nation, just as Rick Santorum's speech after his second-place finish in Iowa last week was essentially his hello, nice to meet you on the national stage. This speech you just saw served as that for John Huntsman. Steve Schmidt, I've been going to you first out of these as a Republican strategist, looking at that as a Republican speech. How'd John Huntsman do?
I don't think he did too well. I thought it was unfocused. It was undisciplined. I think this is why you want to have teleprompters for these moments, that you have a small amount of time to communicate to the largest audiences you're going to have an opportunity to communicate to. And he was just all over the place. He was very much speaking to the room. I'm sure the comments went over really well in the room. People were excited to see him. But I think to people who are on the fence, people who are open to looking at someone besides Governor Romney in the race, it was a missed opportunity for him.
Al Sharpton, you have been talking tonight about the opportunity in taking an anti-war stance, and we did see John Huntsman there front-paging his desire to end the Afghanistan war quickly. Do you think that connected, and how do you think John Huntsman looked tonight?
I think that it can connect. The question is, I think it got lost in so many other things that he was doing. He should have taken 2-3 points and close, because you can't give people 12 different things and then thank everybody in the room by name and think anyone's going to remember it when they're just seeing you for the first time. I think that probably the best speech tonight was Mitt Romney, because he read it. The problem is going to be when he gets in debates and no one has the teleprompter and you don't have the somebody in your ear, whether that was true or not with Bush. We all liked the rumor. Whether it was true or not, I don't know, but it sure looked a little
It is a liberal fantasy.
Can he stand up on his own? And I think that that's where I think Mitt Romney falls apart. And when he starts ad-libbing, this is the author of Marie Antoinette. Let's not forget, with all of him playing martyr in South Carolina, he's taken some real shots at the president, real shots at Newt Gingrich. So pardon me if I don't take out my handkerchief and cry for what they're getting ready to do to him in South Carolina.
Let me say, we are waiting now to hear from Newt Gingrich and to hear from Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum did give a really good speech out of Iowa. Newt Gingrich, I've got to say, I disagree with him on just about everything. I always find him a compelling speaker. Let's go to Chris Matthews right now. We're waiting for those two to start. Chris, how do you think John Huntsman did?
Well, it's interesting, Rachel, how different the speeches are in different directions. I think Steve was right, Steve Schmidt, that there was a very diffuse speech by Huntsman, but they go completely different directions. I mean, look at Romney, again going after President Obama, direct partisan attack on the president. That's what he does every chance he gets. Then you have Paul all over the place, like the world's greatest authority, like Professor Irwin Corey, with all these different bromides and things he's going to sell, these I don't know what you'd call them, suggestions for changing the universe. And then you've got Huntsman coming on, basically going against the Afghanistan commitment that seems to be ongoing forever. So it's not like they're all competing in the same marketplace of ideas. They each have their own totally different niches they're going in. And you got to wonder, are they all going for the Republican nomination of the same party? And that's what I find probably what's weird about covering this campaign, Rachel. They're just not campaigning for the same audience.
Yeah.
2 out of the 3 candidates that won in New Hampshire tonight want to get out of Afghanistan right now. Not on the plan that the country has. They want to get out right now. This is something totally different than what we've seen from the Republican Party.
The way that strategists talk about this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is the idea of fishing out of different ponds. That these candidates are essentially looking for different voters, looking both to energize different voters, but also to appeal to different voters with the types of messages they are sending. Are any of the 3 candidates we've seen speak tonight, Romney, Paul, or Huntsman, first, second, and third, going for the same voters?
Unfortunately for Huntsman, they are. Huntsman and Romney are, and Huntsman's not going to get him. That was his moment. That was his shot. When you think about Barack Obama, Senator Barack Obama's winning speech in Iowa, if you had not seen 1 minute of that campaign prior to that speech, you knew exactly why he was running for president, exactly why you would vote for him or not vote for him. The same thing with Romney tonight, focused, written, telepromptered speech. And remember, this is the party that spends a great deal of time criticizing the President of the United States for using teleprompters. And I've been kind of teasing Romney and those guys about this on my show in the hope that they would never use teleprompters again, because that'll destroy the Romney candidacy. But Huntsman shows you the price of not using a prompter. That was great for all the people in the room. He made the mistake that a lot of these candidates make, which is they feel the excitement of the room, they feel a confidence surge. I can do this. No, you can't. Your mind is not that organized, not at a moment like this. You're going to ramble. You're going to do your war section. Then you're going to do this thing about being 10,000 miles away from the country. Then you're going to do your war section again and again and again. And so he really missed a spot there. But look, we saw Santorum's good speech get him nothing in the next state. We saw Romney's bad speech last week not hurt him in the next state. So we'll see what happens.
It is interesting to remember, though, that New Hampshire on the Democratic side in 2008, who was favored in the polls going into that? Barack Obama. Who won? Hillary Clinton. But then his speech, he gave a good speech in Iowa, he gave a great speech in New Hampshire, and you're right, that was even turning that defeat, that disappointment that night into a catalyzing moment through the power of the speech was an effective thing for the now president.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall with the Republicans right now. Who really thinks they're going to get the nomination? I mean, does Gingrich think he's going to get it? Does Huntsman think he's going to get it? Does Santorum think he's going to get it? Ron Paul think he's going to get it? I mean, you know, do they really? At some point, you have to really believe, don't you?
I think that's true, but I think the danger is something that Rachel raised. The one that I think, if I were a Republican, Steve, that I'd be concerned about is Ron Paul. Because unlike last time, he's going to have delegates. And if he keeps picking up delegates, he can either do another convention or he could be very interesting on what he instructs those delegates to do on the floor.
Yeah,
so, and I'm not talking about a speech here, but I'm talking about how do they make their liberty point as delegates, having the second largest amount of delegates possibly at that convention. And that's going to be very interesting when in many of the points that they believe in and that he very clearly laid out tonight will be the opposite of what the nominee represents. This could be very, very interesting.
Look, to Ed's question, Ron Paul knows he's not going to get the nomination, knows he's not going to be president. I firmly believe, as of Sunday, that Newt Gingrich knows that too. I went to an event of his in New Hampshire on Sunday in a Mexican restaurant. This is the English-only candidate as the official language. He was introduced by bilingual introducers who were he was giving out bilingual campaign buttons. He then got up and was completely incoherent, unlike television. On television, there's something about the time limits that get him in a much more focused way. You let him go in that room, and the room was silent. There's no reaction to anything he had to say the entire time. The Monroe Doctrine came up and several other things that nobody in the room cared about. The guy, I've never seen somebody in New Hampshire more checked out of this campaign as an actual vote-getting exercise than Newt Gingrich.
So if they want to beat Barack Obama so bad, and if they really know in their heart that they're not going to get the nomination, Why don't they just get behind Romney?
Well, Ron Paul doesn't want to beat Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Ron Paul wants to run
Yeah.
when he's 80. He's 70.